All right, everybody. So in today's demonstration, and look, Tronica, I got you just perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect.
We're getting really good at this. So today we're going to continue to talk about harmony. And what we talked about last Wednesday, what we finished up with was one way to create harmony in a composition is through the principles of repetition. So having imagery that repeats, in a certain way. So we looked at two different ways to create a sense of repetition in two different demo files. And the first one, we already had a good sense of repetition, if you remember. And all of these say the first 9 days of spring. So if I say that, it doesn't make you think of one file over another because they all say that. But this one was the one with the real stylistic looking flowers. And we had a good sense of repetition in that, but we were losing that sense of harmony through the type elements because the type style really didn't speak to spring and the energy and vibrancy and of spring. And so we just did some changes to the font style, found a style that was more appropriate, and that helped kind of bring all of those visual elements together in a more harmonious way. We also talked about the fact that piece also had a good sense of color scheme working for it that created a sense of harmony that related to the theme of spring. But then we did repeat some of those images, those flower forms, by actually having them participate with the type elements. So we just kind of, put those last little final touches on that one. And then the second one, we did some stuff in Photoshop where we took a picture of a zinnia and we got rid of the background. And we experimented with different color treatments that we could do on those flowers so that we had a sense of multiple flowers of different colors. But we also stuck with a color scheme. And we played around with the repetition of that flower element to create a border and used one larger flower image, to kind of top the upper half of that composition. And again, we thought about things like color and type style and bringing all of these visual elements into agreement to create a sense of harmony. So today we are going to explore harmony through visual echo. And so what does that mean? That is echo through color and content. So we've already been doing that, just the things that I've just now talked about. The idea of visual echo was always on our mind. You just didn't realize it. Today we're going to dive deeper into that. So we're going to be working with a demonstration file today. So you'll find that in the Module 2 section. And if you go down to the resource files for class demonstration, you should be able to find everything that you need in the Harmony demo files. And so we downloaded these last week. You guys should already have them. But if you don't, they will still be there for you in Blackboard. And the file that we're going to work with today is this one. Except it's 9 days of fall. So we're moving out of spring, now we're moving into fall. So this is another postcard advertisement for a garden show. So let's talk about the things that are already working in this composition as far as harmony goes in visual echo. Pardon me? So the colors work together in this type of composition. So we have these pom-pom looking flowers at the bottom. We have these what appear to be maybe it looks like a daisy to me. But we have these daisies that are kind of fall colors. Our type content is all in fall colors. So the palette borrows colors directly from the details within the photographic images. The image content also creates contextually, relates contextually to the overall theme of the event being advertised. So we are going to actually redesign this because we have some parts of this that are just really kind of more of a distraction from the fact that there's any harmony going on in this. And some of the things that aren't working would be the placement. So we're still thinking about placement and division. So those principles are not going out the window, even though we finished that module. What we're simply doing is just building on top of what we already know. So we don't have a very good sense of placement and division in this composition. Now, informatively, this has everything that we need for the garden show. It gives us the day, it tells us that it's for 9 days, and that it's a garden show, but that's about it. So we need to think about things like placement and division, and then how we can create a composition where all of these elements are supported. So and where they have a meaningful connection to each other. So right now, the only meaningful connection they have to each other really is just borrowing the colors from these photographic images. And so we need to do a little bit more to bring them together in a more cohesive way, because right now they're just kind of floating on this postcard document. So I have an example of something that's worked ahead, and just like the previous examples, we're not introducing anything new to what we're working with. We're going to start with this and the elements that you see here, and we're just going to play around with things like placement and scale and division to create a sense of visual harmony. And we're going to do this using what I call screens. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but here's an example. And every semester when I do this, it always looks different in the end. So I'll have several different iterations of this. So same information, nothing's different as far as that goes, but I have scaled up these images. So the pom-pom flowers now become much larger, and they're a supporting design element in the background. They just take a step back, but you can still see them and appreciate them. They just become kind of a secondary design element that you can appreciate. Because we don't want it to get in the way of being able to read the type elements. So, these flowers kind of exist in the background. And when I talk about screens, I'm talking about spaces like this space right here, where I created a shape of color, and then I just lowered the opacity so that you can kind of see through it and see these flower forms behind it. But, you can appreciate them, but they don't overpower the overall composition. And then I increased the size of the daisies, and I just put them, up in this upper corner. And then again, I made some more blocks of color, just some simple strips of shapes, rectangular shapes, that cross over each other. And I play around with things like opacity. And I like the idea of turning one line of type on its side. So we have it running vertically down the side. And then each of these sections or divisions that we've created now are great spaces for supporting type. So let's get started. We're going to do all of this in Photoshop. So I'm going to hop back over here to my first example that we're working with. And let's see what else. Oh, I have a little logo here. We can use that in the final product. I'm going to start with maybe turning off the type elements for a moment. And I'm going to start creating a sense of layout. And so that layout is going to include the flower images. And then it's also going to include some shapes that we're going to create. Now, I know I said that we weren't going to add anything to this. What I meant by that was that we're not going to add more photographs. We're going to work with what we have. But we are going to add some elements that we create in Photoshop. So this will teach you more if you're still learning about Photoshop. This will get you acquainted again with the layers window, how we create these shapes to live on their own layers. We can adjust the opacity of those shapes so that they become screens that we can see through. And we're also going to use these shapes to help divide the space. So create a grid layout that all of these elements can live inside of. So let's get started with our smart shape right here, which would be this flower form. And I'm going to use one of my favorite tools, if I can find it. Hang on a second. It's the Move tool. And always make sure that you have your Show Transform Controls box checked right here at the top. So that's what allows you to be able to see when you select an object. You should be able to see its scaling handles. I'm not sure what this second little object is. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rasterize this. So I've got this layer selected. It's just going to make it easier to deal with. Then go to Layer. So this is another review on how to rasterize a smart layer. So I've gone to Layer. I'm going to go to Rasterize. And it's not giving me an option. Hang on a second.
Yeah, mine either.
Hang on a second. Let me figure out what's going on with this.
I think you gotta replace the layer.
Got to what?
Replace the layer with
This one?
Yeah.
Right here. Huh. I don't want to rasterize all layers, that is for sure.
Also, I think there's another window on top of the flower.
Yeah, I'm wondering now what that's about. What happens if I delete it? Are you guys getting the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's investigate this.
The 3-layer frame.
Very interesting. It's like my file did something weird while it was on hiatus from this class. I'm going to figure this out though. So it's in some sort of a window, yeah, like a clipping mask window. I'm going to figure this out. Hang on a second. That's right. So that's what we'll do. So I just don't want to waste a lot of time trying to figure this out. So we'll just work with what we have. So I've got my move tool. I'm going to move this over. I'm going to expand this window so it kind of acts like a mask. And I'm not sure how this happened. Something weird happened in my file as it was sitting for a year waiting for me to open it back up, I guess. Sometimes they just get kind of erratic. So I'm increasing the size of the mask, and then I'll increase the size of my image. So as you can see, it's kind of like a 2-point selection process for me at the moment. That's what I'm trying to determine. Probably about like this big, whatever that translates to. Just kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have, yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine when it's all said and done. So actually, we're going to cover that with a strip of color and type. So it's not, it doesn't really have to go all the way to the edge. I am going to pull it out pretty far just so that I have a bigger image to work with at the top. But yeah. And so we'll just we can still run a strip over that overlaps it, as long as we can see it, taking up, a little over a third of that window or this document should be okay. And then I'm just going to bring this little cropping mask back into it and then deselect it. And we'll just leave it at that. Now these flowers down here, these are rasterized. We should have no problem with that. So I'm going to click on layer 2 and just increase the size of this. And I'm going to make these just humongous. In fact, they're behind my flowers, so it's okay with me that there's some overlapping. I think that'll give it a little bit of visual interest. So I'll scale that up just a little bit. And again, we're going to be covering a lot of this with our screens. So there we go. I might move this down. Alright. How are we doing, folks? Doing all right? Good deal. Okay. let's close this layer, images, and let's lock it for right now because we're going to be doing a lot of clicking around on top of that. So we want to keep those images nice and safe and keep them where they're supposed to be. And now we're going to create a new layer. This layer is going to be for our rectangular screens that we're going to use to divide the space and create spaces for the type. So we're going to do that by going to the menu bar up here at the top. And you'll choose New Layer. And then let's just call this, you can call it rectangles, you can call it screens, huh?
Okay.
And this is the layer that we're going to create our shapes. So I'll put this in my screens folder. So we have one blank layer.
How do you change that to a folder?
Was there already a screens folder right there?
Oh, yes.
But it's empty. So when you create that new layer and you call it screens, just pick it up and drag it on top of that folder and it'll land right in there.
Got it.
Uh-huh.
Drag the rectangles and screens.
There you go. And so this is also good practice for good layer organization.
You got it.
All right. So now we are ready to start creating our screens. I need to see if there's anything else I need to lock, and I think we're good. Yep, I just locked your images layer for right now, and I guess the background layer. And now I'm going to come and get one of my basic shape marquee tools. So right here, I'm going to grab the rectangular marquee tool. And I'm going to start in this corner up here and just click and drag a rectangle. A long, skinny rectangle. So now we have this selection area with these marching ants, and we need to fill that with a color. So we want, harmony is what we're thinking about here in visual echo. So the visual echo here is going to be creating these rectangles that support visual elements, filling them with color that is sampled from the photographic image in the background. So we don't want to just throw in colors that don't have anything to do with these background images, because then they will just be a distraction and you will have a complete disconnect from that sense of harmony. So we want to be able to make sure that we're using colors that are pulled from this background. So I'm going to do that by using the eyedropper tool. And I'm going to start with, gosh, what color do I want to sample today? Like I said, every semester this turns out different. I always come up with something a little bit different. I'm going to try this magenta color. So that's a nice color to use. And I'm just going to fill these marching ants with that color that's in my foreground color picker box. So to do that, I'm going to need to use the paint bucket. So if you don't see the paint bucket in your tool selection here in the window, just remember, one place that they could be hiding would be behind any of these tools that have a little triangle in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you just click and hold on any of these tools, you can see what other options you have available. Now, I know that my paint bucket tool is not up here with these tools. I know that I'm going to have to go to that special pop-out menu where all of my extra tools are. And so to get access to that, I'm going to click on this button down here. I just clicked one time and it just brought up the tool that I just now used. But if I click and hold on this button, now you can see it's going to show me the most recent tools that I used when I went to the Edit Toolbar feature. And so my paint bucket tool is pretty close by. I don't have to go hunting for it very far. But you might have a menu that pops out to the side with a lot more tools that you can choose from. And so you'll just want to find that paint bucket tool, double click on it or drag it to your toolbox, and then you should have it to use. So now that I have my color selected right here in the color picker window, and I've got my paint bucket selected, now I'm ready to dump that color in here, and boom, I have a nice colorful screen. Yes? Or lock? Okay, let me come take a look. Okay, you guys are doing great. All right, so let's move on. So you can see after I have poured those those pixels into that selected area, now it's time to turn those marching ants off. And so the way you can do that is the keyboard shortcut is to press Command and then D, and that just means deselect. But if you ever forget that and you need to turn off a selection, make sure that you go up here to select in the menu bar, and you'll find the deselect option right there. Right now it's not visible because I don't have anything selected. But if I did, that would be selectable and I could turn it off through there. But you can also see the keyboard shortcut to that right here. So it's Command D. At least that's on a Mac. So it'll probably be something different on a Windows computer, but you still have a keyboard shortcut no matter what computer you're on. All right, so we're going to create another layer now in our screens group folder. So make sure you have that selected, and then go to the drop-down menu for the layers window, choose new layer, and I'm just going to call this screen again.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you say layers, this is just my
Yeah.
question. Would that be considered like a page?
Yeah.
Like a separate
A page, or kind of think about it like, the way I have described it in the past is think about it like a stack of panes of glass. Mm-hmm. They're all transparent, but each sheet of glass has some visual element on it. Mm-hmm. And then when you line them up and look through them, you can see through all the glass and see all the elements. And so each layer is transparent, and whatever object you put on it, that's what lives on that layer. And then what's in the foreground is what's at the top of the stack, what's in the background is at the bottom of the stack. So these are just, it's like a deck of cards or a pane of glass or sheets of paper where you just have a different element on each one.
I'm trying to figure out what is a good sign. I just been spelling layer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've done page before, but I just wanted to.
Yeah.
What is a good explanation for layer?
Yeah. I hope that was a good one. Did that help
Mm-hmm.
explain it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll just continue to fingerspell it because if someone else, just because sometimes there are no signs for words, so
Sure.
I'll just fingerspell it.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just a layer that where the visual elements live, and so it could be a type element. Type layers. Right now we're just making shapes, or you could put a photograph on a layer. Mm-hmm. And so they just hold visual content really, and then how you have them stacked will dictate how it appears on the artboard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So like if I move this down below the images, you can see now it goes into the background. Mm-hmm. So how they are ordered is very important. So now we have a brand new screen layer, and it is a transparent layer. And so we're just going to create another screen for this. I'm going to lock this layer just because we're going to be clicking around on top of it. We don't want to disturb it. And I'm going to create my screen on the newest screen layer. And I'm going to use the exact same tool to do that, to do this process. So I'm going to go and get the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to click and drag a big rectangle that stretches horizontally and pretty much through the middle section of that. And then I'm going to sample another color, something different than what I used before. So I'm going to go get my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to pick maybe some kind of a green color. So that's a nice, fall dark green. And if it's too dark, remember, we can lower the opacity. So I'm going to use my paint bucket tool now to spill some pixels in there. And so there's our green band of color. I'm ready to deselect this now. So this time I'll do it through the menu item at the top. I'll go to select and deselect. And now the marching ants have gone away. And I'm going to use my move tool, this particular one, so that I can scale this shape because it doesn't quite go all the way to the edge. Now yours might have gone perfectly to the edge, and if so, you don't have to do this step, but I think I'd like to correct mine a little bit. Maybe a little bit higher. Okay. And so that looks good for right now. I'll leave that the way it is. I might come back and lower the opacity layer, but for right now, that's pretty good. So we have another color that we're going to add to this, and so that means that we need another screen. So with my screen group folder selected, I'm going to create one more layer. I'm going to go to the menu item in the layer window, go to new layer, and I'm going to call this one screen as well. Now, if I were being really organized about this, I would be naming these the screen or whatever color they are, but, you guys know you can do that, right? So, to save time, we're just going to call them screens. So, I'm going to lock the previous screen layer. I don't want to mess that one up. I'm going to select the newest screen layer, and then I'm going to come over here and get my marquee tool once again. And I'm going to click up here and drag all the way to this corner here. And then I'm going to sample a color to put in there. So I could do yellow, I could do orange. I don't know, I'm kind of feeling the orange today. Let's just check it out and see what it looks like. So let me get a nice cheery kind of orange. That's kind of nice. It's kind of a mixture in between the yellow and orange. Or there's this color up here. It's kind of pretty. It's a little more orange too. Or I could do yellow. I don't know. I'm going to go back to orange. You like orange? Orange it is. Bless you. So now that I have chosen my color, I'm ready to pour some pixels into that selected area. And again, I'm going to use the paint bucket tool to do that. And just drop it in. Oh, that's beautiful. I like that color.
It's cute.
This might be my best one yet.
Oh yeah, that's pretty, that little design.
It is. It really pops against that too. Yeah, I like that. That's nice. So now I'm going to deselect this selection area. And I want to scale this up a little bit. As you can see, I didn't quite get it all the way up there to the edge. So I'm going to get my move tool, which also lets you scale. Scale that up just a tad. And that's good. All right. So we have, even without seeing the rest of our visual elements, I think we already have a layout that looks quite a bit more dynamic. So let's do a couple of things to make it even more dynamic. So we need to be able to see our pom-pom flowers in the background. So let's select that screen. And let's just experiment with what happens if we reduce the opacity a little bit. Maybe to 75%, which I think is just enough because we can still see the pom-poms. It helps to set up this logo really nicely down here. And I think I might even see what it looks like if I lower the opacity of this green band. And I might take it back up, I'm just not sure. So that is selected. I like it okay. I think I'm going to move it down a little bit. some interesting overlap going on right here. I see. I need to scale this up a certain way. I'm going to move this scaling point up so that I can just bring this bottom half up and leave that line right where it's at. So remember, if you want to change the scaling point or rotation point of an object, you just move that center transformation point to wherever you want your object to be anchored when you scale in a certain direction. And now we're ready to bring our type elements back into this. Got it? So I'm going to close my screen group folder and I'm going to lock that. That's really important, and lock your images, because now we're going to be doing a lot of clicking around on all of this content. We don't want to select something and delete it or move it or change something about it. This, I know I'd like to use this later, but I think right now I'm going to turn the visibility off. Just right now, because I know we're going to run some type along here, and then we'll figure out what to do with that logo. All right, so I'm going to turn my type layer back on, and here we are. So we got to fit all this content to this new layout grid that we've created. All right? But we've come a long way since that first iteration, haven't we? I mean, this is looking a lot more polished and professional already, just by making these simple adjustments and additions. So let's open up our type layer. And, Awesome. You are right where you need to be. So I'm going to dive into 9 Days of Fall first. This is the one that I'm going to spend some time working with, because this is what I want to run vertically along the right-hand side. So we do have a vertical type tool, but this is not what we're going to use. And the reason why is because it leaves you with type characters that are still sitting vertical, and it runs them down a straight line.
So
and
instead of this,
yes, so all the characters would be right side up. Yeah, it'd be hard to read. So we still want, we do an okay job reading lines of type if they're turned, as long as the letters are all facing each other the right way. So that's why we're not going to use the vertical type tool, because the letters would not face each other the right way, and it would just take longer to get the message. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this type. So I'm going to go back here and get my move tool, and I'm going to select this type. Well, it's already selected. And I'm going to increase the font size. So I'm just going to scale it up. And you can do that in Photoshop, actually. Not every program will allow you to treat type that way, but Photoshop will. So notice that as I scrub, the point size automatically adjusts. So you're not distorting your type. It's just paying attention to how you're scaling it, because it scales everything proportionally when you just click and drag. And so the type tool knows that you've made your type larger, and it's going to show you what the new point size is. So I have mine set to like 35 points. I don't know if that's going to work or not. We'll see.
I gotta find a new font.
You got to find a new font? Yeah, just find anything that's kind of close to that. And it's totally your call. In fact, I'm going to take this. What's that? Yes, I'm using the move tool. So it's this tool right here. And just make sure that you have show transform controls selected at the top with a check mark. And that will allow you to select, move, scale, and rotate. Let me come take a look. it letting you rotate the words? Yeah, okay. Well, let's start. Let's get inside the box. There you go. I don't know why it's crooked in that box, but I would have had to go back and watch other steps. But you got the idea.
I got the line thing too, so
You got the what?
the line from line thing.
Okay. Okay, good. Awesome. Good, good, good. How's yours going?
Good, just on the wrap with text.
Okay. You know, I don't think you're going to want to warp it for this. I think you just want to rotate it. So if you get your move tool right there, and then you can rotate that. You can scale it to make it bigger. And you can rotate it. You're going to run it right along this rectangle. All right, you got it? Y'all set? Good deal. Oh, I need to catch up. Okay, so I'm going to rotate mine. And my goal usually with this is not only to have these shapes support type, but have them support like specific parts of the type. So I want the word of to fall in this box right here. So I want 9 days in this upper rectangle that got created when we overlap those shapes. And then I want this second box down that got created when we overlapped these two shapes. I want that to support the word of. And then I want fall to live in this bottom rectangle shape that got created when we overlapped the bottom panel and the vertical panel. And I'm going to increase the font size a little bit. I'd like for it to take up a little bit more space in there. What's that? Yes. That's why it wasn't working for me. There you go. And I might just stick with that. Let's see. Yeah, need some help. Okay. Oh. Okay. All right, what's going on over here? Okay, so just double click to get that whole line top. And trouble, yeah, triple click. And from there, you can change the font style. You can change the size of it. The size, go to your character window and scrub through the font size. If you just put your cursor over those T's right there, it'll scrub. And then you can choose a different font style. You're welcome. How you doing up here, Eric?
Doing good.
You are doing good.
Yeah, just let me find a good font style.
Okay. All right. Find the best one.
You got it.
Aren't they nice? They work great in there, for sure. I noticed that my of needs a little bit more breathing room. So I can fix that pretty easily. If you're having the same issue, I don't want it to be too cramped. I want to have a little bit of space in that box that it lives in. So I'm going to go and find that screen. Which is this green one. And I'm just going to move the scaling handle to up here, or the scaling point to the top, and I'm just going to scale it down just a little bit. And hit return. And then I think I'm going to have to move this screen down just a little bit. So I will move its scaling point down here so that I can just move this top part down. And I think I can scale it horizontally if I hold maybe the Option key down. Or maybe the Shift key. I always forget. It's always the opposite of what you think it's going to be. Hold the Shift key down, and then you can, because when I scaled it down, it still wanted to scale it proportionally, and then I ended up with those little white strips on the side. And so if you hold the Shift key down, it allows you to just pull one side when you scale and leave all the other sides where they need to be. And so now with that, I have a little bit more breathing room for my 9 days of fall. But I'm kind of rethinking my font colors. And I'm going to make 9 really big. So I'm going to get my type tool and select just the letter 9. Go to character and just scrub that up a little bit. Maybe take that space out of there. Let's see if I can get away with that. Or just change the space between those letters. That's better. So I just changed the tracking between 9 and D just to bring those a little bit closer together. And now I'm just going to reseat this so that the word of sits more comfortably inside that space. Now I can see that I'm having some problems though with my color choice. Now on this screen the words, are a lot easier to read, but on my screen that word fall just does not contrast enough with this background. They're both about the same intensity of color or brightness. And so I think I'm going to change the coloring of this word or these words 9 days of fall. And so I'm going to do that by still using colors that are available to me in my photographic images. So I'm going to select, if you 1, 2, 3 triple click, it'll select that whole line of type. I'm going to get my eyedropper tool. I'm going to choose this really bright yellow. And I'll always forget, you got to choose the color first and then apply to the type. So I've got my color chosen now. Now I'll go back to my type tool, select all that type, and hit that yellow, tell it OK. And that should pop a lot better. Boom! So that really contrasts from the background quite well. We can read those elements very well. All right, and then one of the last things we need to do is we need to format this type garden show, and I want to put this these type elements right inside this rectangle here. So the rectangle that runs perpendicular to the word of, that's where we're going to fit this type. So we're going to do some kind of fun things with this. Let me get back to my type later. So garden. So garden looks like it might have a little drop shadow behind it, which is fine. I was just investigating how that was built. So I'm going to move garden. Uh-oh, at least 2 layers of type. Yep, that's right. It's 2 layers of type. I could have also done this with 1 layer and just put a really sharp glowing edge around it with this brighter color, but that's okay. So I'm going to select both of these layers and just move this word over. And then I'm going to select both of these layers for show and move that up into here and just kind of stagger them a little bit. Well, at least she was thoughtful about it, you know? I mean, that goes a long way. I get it. I'm going to reduce the point size of garden just a tiny bit for both of those layers. So reduce them together. And that way the letters aren't just sitting right on top of each other. And then last we have join us. Let's just put this kind of centered down here beneath everything. And then let's finish it off with that logo. So let's go get our logo. There it is. And I'm just going to move it over. Oops. Okay, block your layers first. Don't do what I did. Yeah. Right there. And there's the logo. You just kind of pop it down there. And I think that also one last thing is I think the proximity of the date should be a little bit closer to join us. And you could even make join us bigger, which might actually look really nice. So I'm going to increase the size of that and just see what it looks like. Again, I never do this thing the same way, ever, in all the years that I go through this. I always find some different way that I want to arrange things. So I'll put join us down here. And then maybe just make this logo a little bit smaller. And pop it right there. So, how'd that work for everybody? Did you guys end up with something that looks similar to this? So we've come a long way. So for that very first iteration of this postcard advertisement for this event, it had all the elements that we needed. There was a sense of visual harmony as far as the visual echo of color and content. But because of the lack of a grid framework and a lack of being thoughtful about things like placement and division, we were losing that. What am I trying to say? cohesiveness. Thank you. We were lacking that cohesiveness to bring these things together. So just by playing with things like scale and of the type elements as well as the visual elements, and then just creating some supporting design elements that help to give us a better sense of a grid framework that all of the elements align to in some way, to give a meaningful connection to all of the visual elements. So we've come a long way in an hour. You guys just did a whole redesign for a garden show advertisement postcard. So on Wednesday, we'll pick up again, looking at echoes through visual reference or thematic reference and visual bridging. So we'll still be, looking at the same things that we're looking at as far as color scheme, type elements, visual images, but we're also going to explore how to create a visual bridge to create a sense of harmony in a composition. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's demonstration, and we'll just pick up where we left off on Wednesday, wrap things up, and talk about the next assignment in this class.